And while I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, I am very hopeful because partially I get to meet so many amazing people and have so many great conversations and see what you guys are all up to. And a couple weeks ago I was actually at the SpaceX launch. I was
Nice.
10 miles away.
Wow.
A friend of mine had a condo and I was right across the pad. And it was just amazing. It was just like, and then I turned on the news later that day and all this craziness stuff was going on in the world. But I thought to myself, what a contrast of like we're taking men up in private, by a private company, first time in 9 years that man craft from U.S. soil.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was kind of like I felt like it was a hopeful day. But also earlier this year, before COVID, I read a book that was actually published in 2012 called Abundance. And the subtitle of the book was "The Future is Better Than You Think." How ironic that 2020 ended up happening after I read this book. But I actually one that had a lot of really cool information in there about how the world's always getting better. Actually, even though we kind of think it's not. I mean, it's a lot of data points. It says like it just shows like by 2035, humanity should be able to eradicate absolute poverty for like the first time in history, and that's even moving up in terms of what absolute poverty is and things like that. So there's just a lot of little data points of technology, healthcare, education, all these things. So anyway, even though there's a lot of craziness right now sometimes with the pandemic and everything else, I really do think like the future is better than we think, and a lot of it is people like you guys who are kind of leading the charge, and also just doing things that you do in the world and also in Nashville and beyond. But anyway, let's get into like the kind of the conversation we want to have today. Before the coronavirus changed the world, there was Nashville was hit by a deadly tornado, and so a lot of people around the world kind of forget that. I don't even know if people in Nashville forget that. I'm not part of this community, but in terms of because so much craziness has happened since. But of course it cost dozens of lives and lots of homes and businesses and
point blank, man.
Historic live music venues. So I also know, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about this. I know like musicians were kind of part of the response in the immediate days and weeks afterwards. But just in those days and weeks afterwards, the pandemic hit and the whole world shut down, including live music events. So as the economy is now beginning to slowly reopen, it seems still that concerts and large events are going to be like the last things, that where people are going to gather and safely reopen. So anyway, here's where we brought together 5 of you all. And as I mentioned, 4 of you are musicians and full-time professional musicians, and one is a serial entrepreneur, Mark Cleveland. And Mark is among many other things, the founder and CEO of Hitch. I had him on podcast, I think it was episode 31, 3 years ago now when I was here in Nashville. And so anyway, want to go forward. First topic I want to see if we can talk about, and actually I should pause as I was mentioning about the podcast and kind of going, I mentioned like the book idea and things like that. What I'm also starting to see is that the podcast and my involvement with it is I'm starting to see it more or less than just a podcast, but more like a community of innovators across diverse professions. And so, music and artists are one profession, but I've had people from all sorts of, whether it be tech startups, education, healthcare, real estate, whatever. And so what I'm actually, as this is kind of evolving, I'd like to do more conversations and bringing, every single one of my podcasts has been a one-on-one interview, which is great, but I think as we're kind of building it, I have a website with all of the archived things is maybe now starting to cross-pollinate people. And hopefully, I really like to connect people. That's just kind of one of the things I like to do. But so hopefully, it can help make connections with people that may or may not have otherwise known each other. I know a few of you do know each other here. But anyway, just kind of start having some more conversations about innovation and things like that. So